What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. I'm Nicky Phenom, a singer-songwriter who has dared to dream and is now on a mission to capture that dream. I created this channel not only to share my original music, but also to document my journey and to tell of my experiences along the way in hopes that it helps to inspire, motivate, and educate you and others like us so that we can grow together as artists. In this video, I'm going to tell you guys about my personal experience having joined in bands, having also put one together myself, and just kind of what that has been like for me. So throughout my career, I've only ever been in 3 different bands, and they haven't really ever been, none of them have ever been like a long stretch. I haven't been with them for any number of years. I think maybe just a few years really is as far as I've ever been with any band. So yeah, let me go ahead and start by saying bands can be a real pain in the ass. And don't get me wrong, they can be really fun too to be in. I definitely cherish my experiences as far as we had some good times, and our performances, were always a blast, right? I always enjoyed going out on stage, and when we're all in sync and we're all just up there having a good time. It's when it's good, you know what I mean? But on the flip side of that, when it's not, it's not. So yeah. So let's begin with me joining my first band, which would become known as Crossfire Hurricane. So when I joined with Crossfire Hurricane, it was already a project that was in its early development stages. I had answered an ad that was looking for a vocalist to start a band. And so I answered, and I went, and I met this guy who was a guitarist, and he was basically he was a well-experienced, well-seasoned musician who had played for several years, had been in several bands, whatever, and I guess he was just kind of looking to get back in the game and start playing again. So it started out with just me and him, and shortly after that meeting, he brought in a drummer friend of his that I think he had played with before as well. But yeah, so it just started out with really us 3. We were like the meat and potatoes. We were practicing a lot for a long time, basically, and just getting to know each other and just trying to tighten things up. And once it did, he eventually brought in a bass player, and then we had like one of his friends was like did keyboards and stuff, and then we added a couple of backup singers. But yeah, so we had like an 8-piece band by the time it was over, because again we were doing a Rolling Stones tribute, so we had a lot of players and stuff, and yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, just let's put it this way: I don't know if I could have done that. Putting together a band is I've learned can be tough, but I would say right off the bat it's good to know people, people that run in those circles. Because if you're like new to the game like me, when I came on the scene, I didn't know any musicians, other than, maybe like my brother-in-law who could play guitar and stuff. But I mean, he was back in Texas. This is right after I moved to Florida. So, yeah, I didn't know anybody. I couldn't play an instrument other than the ukulele at the time, and I wasn't even like, great at that. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have known, who to call or where to go look for this stuff, not to say that I couldn't have done it on my own at all, but I'm just saying it probably would have been more of a pain in the butt. This is nicer to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, you know what I mean? Like I said, the guy was well experienced. He ran in those circles, so he knew a lot of musicians or people that knew other musicians. And yeah, so he was able to make phone calls or go to the right places and stuff, and he was able to put this band together shortly after me and him had partnered up. So I had, no doubt a good time when I first started on, with the band, because it was it was all new to me, right? Like this was an exciting time because I'd never been part of a band. Hell, I never even been somebody's vocalist or whatever. And here I am thinking, hey, I'm actually a part of this thing, and I'm gonna be a front man. I'm gonna be out there performing in front of audiences and stuff, and it was just neat, right? Like I'm really excited about this. So yeah, I met a lot of people, made some friends with the bandmates and stuff like that, and gained some pretty cool new experiences in my life. But all that being good, there was also, as here and there, and as time went on, we didn't always see eye to eye on things. When it comes to bands, you got to think of it. It's almost like family, in a way. Like you're not always gonna see eye to eye. You're not always gonna agree on everything, and sometimes you're even gonna butt heads and maybe even argue and fight a little bit. The backup vocals are mad at the guitar player, or the drummer doesn't agree with the singer, or the bass player is has his own thing kind of going. He's upset about some, a number of things, right? Because again, you got a large group of people. Like we had 8 people, so there was a lot of different people with different ideas, and again, like I said, it's like family. So you're gonna fight and you're gonna argue, you're gonna have disagreements, but at the end of the day, you're family, and you find a way to be professional and get along so you can go out there and perform, right? Because ultimately that's what we love to do, and that's what our our goal is, right? We want to go out and play and have a good time. And when we're out there playing, it's always, like I said, it's great, right? It's always a good time. But yeah, you're definitely it's definitely a pain because we did start having disagreements, and somebody would say something about somebody else, and you don't it's, I don't want to get too into it, but basically, like I said, it's not always fun. It's not always a good time. There is a lot you got to deal with. People, some people couldn't make it to rehearsals. Some people didn't feel that they needed to be at rehearsals. They felt, hey, why should I be? I know my stuff. I don't need to be coming here. And then some of us would have disagreements with that. Like, well, you need to come here, so maybe it'll help us. Maybe the rest of us need you here to help us, get through this and feel more comfortable. And then some people were busy. Some of us were in multiple bands. You also had disagreements with, what songs to play or how it should be done. Like, how are we going to, what's the intro going to be like? How are we going to end this song? There's, like I said, just different opinions and stuff about ideas and things like that. And then sometimes somebody might say something that might be a little offensive to another bandmate, and yeah, it's just, sometimes it was a little uncomfortable. I was the type of guy that, when I would go to rehearsals, I wanted to go. If it was rehearsal time, it's rehearsal time. Like, I enjoyed doing this, okay? A lot of those guys had been already, in the game for several years, some, 20 plus years, right? They've been doing it a long time. Me, I was just new to the scene, so to me, all of this stuff was new, and I was just happy and excited to be a part of the project. If it was a rehearsal, they called us in for rehearsal. I'm there, man. I was like the first one in, I'm the last one to leave, And if I had something else going on that day, I would just cancel whatever it was so I could go to the rehearsals. Because to me, I was making this music thing more my priority in my life because I really wanted to do this. I was fully committed, So, yeah. So there's that. Like I said, you just got to be willing to put up, take the good with the bad with the good, and just realize that it's not always going to be fun. But yeah, so as time went on, I started to feel like I was ready to move on. I just wanted to, I felt like because I just started, right, and, I'd been with the band for a few years, and, we had played some, our fair share of shows, and We had, eventually, made it to do like a hard rock show, which was really cool. I started to feel like I was outgrowing the band, I guess. I hope that makes sense. Like, not to say that I'm better than these guys, I'm better than this now, so I need to, move on to bigger, better things. It wasn't like that. It was more like I was just kind of tired, I guess. I'd grown bored with, just doing the Rolling Stones thing. I didn't want to be, Mick Jagger, for the rest of my life. Not to mention I am not a young man at this time, right? I'm in my 30s, my mid 30s, I believe, actually. So, I'm thinking, man, I'm trying to, I don't have a lot of time. Like, I don't want to, I want to go and experience more things and, do more with this music. So, yeah, I just, I got tired of just, being Mick Jagger. The last couple of shows, I decided I didn't want to wear the wig anymore because it was kind of like a costume thing, right? I was trying to dress up and stuff and play the character. So I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm kind of wanting to be my own person. I want to be me. Obviously we're a tribute band, so I gotta, I gotta still play the character somewhat. But I was thinking to myself, you know what? I don't want to wear the wig anymore. I was also getting some ink done, which I didn't have before when I had started with the band. So that was different, yeah, I just had some other ideas that like I said, I wanted to mix in a little bit of me in there, and I think that was a little bit frowned upon. Got a little bit of pushback for it. I was like, hey, I don't want to sing just Rolling Stone songs either for the rest of my life either. I wanted more. Okay. And I wanted to start playing more, and I wanted to get out of like, doing little bar gigs. You know what I mean? I just felt like maybe I had gone as far as this was able to take me. I had got some experience and I enjoyed it. I cherished it, but I was looking to expand my horizons, I guess you could say. I wanted to spread my wings and fly, kind of leave the nest a little bit, see what else is out there. I think, my guitarist, like I said, I'm trying not to, I don't want to, get too into it, talk bad about the guy. I mean, he was definitely a significant figure in my music career, having brought me on as the vocalist for this band and stuff. And, I had a lot of great experiences, alongside him. And we actually, I went to my first Rolling Stones concert, with that guy. So yeah, but, unfortunately, though, me and him just didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and I think he started to get a little upset because I think he saw that I was kind of pulling away, and I had mentioned to him that I was looking to do other things, and I wasn't really, I guess, involving him in my other ideas to do other things, But like I said, I was just trying to explore more, I didn't want to just feel like I'm tied down to this, forever, and I got to follow. And he was the leader of this band, right? So it's like, I was kind of just letting him do his thing and lead. And so now I'm just like, hey, I kind of want to do my own thing. But anyways, I think it started to get, he was frowning upon that, and he was kind of giving me crap about it. And I noticed that we were starting to kind of, grow further apart. And anyways, like I said, that was a long time ago now. And yeah, I eventually got involved in some other projects, and I just want to say, for the record, I never quit Crossfire Hurricane. I never officially said, hey, I'm out of the band, I don't want to do this anymore. I basically had let them know, though, that I was interested in other things, and I'd rather not playing bars anymore. But if they had something, bigger come up or whatever, then just let me know, and I'm there, man. I still want to continue. I still wouldn't mind performing some, Rolling Stones tribute shows with them. But again, but it needed to be something different. That's all I was saying. I was looking to grow. I wanted to grow as a musician, as a performer. So, I think, some people couldn't understand that maybe. But yeah, so again, I never officially dropped out of that band. So maybe, technically, I'm still in that band after all these years, right? And, but yeah, eventually, they didn't call me anymore. They didn't talk to me about, any upcoming shows. And, yeah, I guess they decided, to hell with Nikki, and we're going to go do our own thing. So, but anyways, that's how it went. So I have no grudges. I have nothing bad against anybody, to say, other than, hey, we grew apart, and, just kind of without any official, announcements being made or whatever, it just fell off. And I haven't performed with Crossfire Hurricane, in some years now. So in the midst of, all of that kind of, pulling away from Crossfire Hurricane and looking to expand, I came across another band, an original rock band called Demolition Amore, which if you've watched my other previous videos, you've heard me talk about them before. They were also in search for a vocalist, which again I found them, on a Craigslist ad, just like I had with Crossfire Hurricane. So Craigslist has been good to me. I find a lot of things on Craigslist. I don't know if it's as popular as it was back then, but it's what I used. I still use it to this day, and so I don't know if you've never heard of it or whatever. Check it out in Craigslist, Orlando or Craigslist, or wherever you're from, right? And it's like this little website thing with all these ads and people looking for stuff, and it's more than just about music. It could be anything, like little odd jobs or whatever. So it's just an idea. So yeah. So they were looking for a vocalist. I answered the ad. I eventually, I got on with the band. And when I got on with Demolition Amore, it was not necessarily in development stages as a band. They already had all their band members. They just needed their vocalist, which ended up being me, and I completed the band. And that was really an interesting time for me as well, because I was looking for new experiences, as I mentioned earlier, and here I am now joining with a original rock band, and they were wanting to record an album. And again, this was with seasoned musicians as well, and these guys were like really serious about this project. Like they were talking about not just finishing this album, but also doing more, like recording more after just doing one album. They had plans to do more, and touring, and they knew people and they had these connections and stuff like that. So it was really exciting, and I had never recorded music before, so I was like really stoked about that. I was like, man, this is really cool. This is something different. This is kind of like what I was talking about, So it was definitely an exciting time, like I mentioned. I gained a lot of new experiences, which is what I was looking for. I made some new friends, and learned a lot working with this band. The producer actually became a really good friend of mine. I would say we're like brothers at this point, and he really took me under his wing and taught me a lot of things. And he was really big into planning things. Like nothing was just up in the air or let the chips fall where they may with him. Like everything was very calculated. He'd really he was really serious about promoting things, the marketing, specific types of dates, how things should be done. So I really liked that, because I felt he made me feel confident in what he was saying. All his suggestions, always made me feel like, okay, this guy's, he's got a plan, he's got dates set schedules, and you know what I mean, like, and he had connections. He knew a lot of people, because he had moved around a lot, and he had worked with several different bands. He had experience, not just playing in bands, but like management and stuff like that. And yeah, so people who were involved in radio, like I said, he's a very significant figure. And so yeah, I eventually, I started going to his house, and we would record. And our guys in this band, we were kind of separated. Like we had one guy, I think, the guitarist was like in Miami. We had a lyricist that was in Canada. We had one of the guys who did like lead guitar and keys in Venezuela, and also the drummer was in Venezuela. So, and here we are in the producers in Kissimmee, and so we're all kind of spread out, right? I'm more closer to like Orlando area, and so it was just interesting how we were a band even though we were far apart from each other. But, we were able to make it work, and it did for a while. We recorded a lot of music. Like I said, I learned a lot about, recording in a studio and how it all works. And it was not easy, by the way. You can check out some of my previous videos that I did, the difference between live performance and studio recording. Being in the studio and recording is not my favorite thing. It's not my strength, I'll tell you that. But it was definitely, a cool experience. And yeah, so there you go, man. I enjoyed being with Demolition Amore while it was good. We had planned to eventually go out and like perform, and unfortunately, things started to fall through. COVID, number one, really kind of screwed things up for us. When that whole thing happened, and everybody had to say, like, I couldn't, we had to stay away from each other, and everybody's kind of dealing with that whole thing, right? Like, it was a big deal. That really slowed down the project, and after a while too, some of the band members just, they weren't seeing eye to eye on some things, and there were some problems and issues. Again, I'm not going to get into all that, and some of the stuff I don't even know the whole story, but because that was kind of like happening on the sidelines, right behind the scenes. And yeah, some people were upset with other people and this, that, and the other, and things weren't getting done. Things weren't on schedule like they were supposed to be, and people were pointing fingers. It should have been you, blah blah blah, this and that. There's a lot of stuff going on, and then there was an issue with investments. And just a lot of things. Like I said, I don't know exactly the whole story, but I mean, I got the gist of it. And so yeah, so it put a hold on the project, and long story short, it eventually just, like I said, no official announcements were made. It's just one of those things where things started to drift apart. People drifted apart. The project started to slow down. Eventually came to a halt, and it was no longer a thing. It slowed down, and I was still looking to expand, right? I was still, looking to keep pushing on with my music career. So, in the midst of that, I had this bright idea that, hey, I'm just going to put together my own band, and in the meantime, right, while things are maybe working out or maybe they're not going to work out, I don't know, but I'm going to put together my own band, and because I'm looking to go out and perform. Truth be told, I longed to be on stage. I enjoy being up on stage performing in front of an audience. That's where I really come to life. I shine. I feel like I live on stage. That's where I can really let loose and have a great time, and just, I'm actually, a lot of people have a hard time believing this, but I consider myself more of an introvert. I like staying to myself. I don't like big crowds, or at least not being in a big crowd. All right, I don't mind. I know it sounds weird because people are like, well, how can you perform? Like, how are you going up there and like, why are you interested in singing in front of a big audience or whatever? Like, how does that work? Don't ask me how. I think the only thing I can tell you on that is that I'm not in the crowd at the time. I'm on stage singing to a crowd. So, that's one thing. Number two, it's not like I'm just being thrown on stage and it's like, hey, entertain, go. Like, no, there's rehearsals involved, right? Like I have a game plan. I kind of already know how this is going to go. All right, so I'm not too nervous about that. I've rehearsed it over and over again. I know I have the plan, right? So yeah, and I don't feel like I'm just myself. I'm this character, right? So, anyways, I don't want to get not trying to blab too much, but basically, I was longing to get back on stage, and I hadn't been on stage in a while. Like I had been mostly recording music in the studio. We were preparing to eventually go out and perform. So, anyways, like I said, I had this idea where I was like, you know what, I got to get back on stage because I'm freaking, I'm freaking out here. You know what I mean? I'm getting really bored, and I feel like I'm losing time. I'm not getting any younger, and yeah, I just, I'm not the kind of guy that likes to sit around and wait for things to happen. I'm gonna go out there and make stuff happen. So, I can only be patient for so long, and then, regardless of what else is going on, I've always, to me, I've always got something going on. Always, I always want to have something in the back burner. You know what I mean? So that I can, if things aren't going well over here, or if things are slowing down over here, I'm going to this other thing. So I came up with the idea to do a 90s project, where I was going to do just a bunch, 90s covers, of various things. And so, yeah, I was on a quest for that. I said, you know what, I'm going to try to put together my own band. So at this point, I felt a little more confident about putting together the band because now I kind of knew of some people, right? Still didn't know a lot of musicians. You know what I mean? It still wasn't like, hey, I'm just going to, pick up the phone and make a call and, boom, 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 I'm going to have my band together. It was still a little bit, nerve-wracking for me, right? I was like, all right, so I kind of know some people. I'm going to make a couple phone calls or some inquiries on, reach out to some people and see maybe if I can get them or if they know somebody that might want to be part of the band. So I'm already in my mind, I'm thinking, man, I got to do like auditions and, maybe meet people who I've never met before. You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm kind of an introvert. So, it's just makes me a little nervous sometimes, but I don't let that stop me from doing things. I met this bass player that when I was with Crossfire Hurricane, he wasn't part of our band. He never even played with us, but he had came to like a rehearsal or like a little jam session that we had, and I'm not sure why he was there. I can't remember what the deal was, why our guitarist had invited him. I don't know if he was. I think maybe we were looking to have him as a stand-in if we needed to, because our actual bass player, I think he was in multiple things, and he was kind of in high demand. Like people needed a bass player. He was kind of like that guy you would call up, right? He was very, very talented at what he did. So I think that's what had happened. So we were maybe trying to see if we can get this guy to stand in for some shows if we needed him. But anyways, he's a younger dude, and he seemed cool. He seemed like a very nice guy, and I felt like we kind of had gotten along. I think I met him like twice. And so I had asked him to maybe, I told him about my idea to start this 90s project, and I gave him some songs, like a list of songs I was thinking about performing, and just, basically gave him the meat and potatoes of my idea, and if he could, play bass for me. He agreed, and so then I went on, I talked to, I needed a drummer, so I called up my former drummer from Crossfire Hurricane, who I'd played with. He was super cool. Me and him, I think, got along better than anybody in that band. I felt we were kind of the same. We were both kind of introverted people. We didn't, we were just there to, to rehearse and have a little good time and then go home. That was it. That was our thing. We were just looking to get out and perform. I feel like me and him were on the same, wavelength, the same level, and I always enjoyed his company. So anyways, yeah, I'm sorry. I have nothing but good things to say about him. I always thought he was really a nice guy, really cool guy. But anyways, I asked him to be the drummer, and he was a little hesitant. He was a little more like, he wasn't really sure. He was involved in some other bands too, and I think, I just suspect, I don't know, he was still, friendly with the guitarist from Crossfire Hurricane, and I was thinking that maybe he was worried that if he joined with me, that maybe the guitarist would be upset with him, because again, I felt like the guitarist kind of, was upset with me for having left the band, I guess, or whatever. But anyways, so I did get him to come out and do an audition, to meet the bass player and stuff, and kind of, have like a little jam session to kind of feel it out, right? And I forgot to mention, actually, so I had mentioned this project idea also to my guitarist from Demolition Amore. Okay, me and him were still in touch, and I can't even remember why how I brought this up, because I don't think I was planning on him being the guitarist. Somehow we were just talking. I mentioned it, and he was like, he showed some interest, I think, if I remember correctly. I don't know. Maybe I did ask him. I'm not sure. But I know he was like, well, he was asking me some questions about it, and he was like, yeah, eventually, basically, long story short, he was like, yeah, I'll be the guitarist, for this. Let's do it, and like I said, we were both kind of waiting in the meantime, like, to see what was going to happen with Demolition Amore, and we were both itching to kind of go out and perform. So, and it kind of worked out. So luckily for me, it wasn't too much of a hassle putting together this band. So I had my guitarist, the drummer, and the bass player. So far, we all go to do a rehearsal, or not a rehearsal, like a jam session kind of thing. It seemed pretty cool. For the most part, everybody seemed on board except for the drummer. He was like iffy. Eventually, I called him up shortly, after that, and he let it be known that he was sorry, but that he just didn't think he could do this. He was going to be busy with some other projects, and he don't know if he can be going back and forth to do this as well. And yeah, so anyways, he basically let me know he couldn't do the drumming thing. So the guitarist now, he was on the hunt, and he's like, hey, I can find somebody, and he found our first drummer. All right, so we have our 4-piece band, and even though it was supposed to be like a 90s project, like various 90s cover songs, when I was searching through like different songs that I wanted to maybe perform, I came across like Stone Temple Pilots songs that were kind of popular back then, that I remembered hearing. And what happened was I ended up falling down a rabbit hole with the Stone Temple Pilots stuff. And I just came to this realization where I was like, man, that's another good song. And I hear the next one, I was like, man, that's another good song. It's like, I forgot all about that one. Or, oh man, like, oh, I didn't even know that they sang that one. Like, anyways, this, like, all this nostalgic stuff and memories and stuff kind of fled back in my head, reminded me when I was a kid growing up and listening to them and stuff. And I practiced a little bit of the singing along with some of the songs, and I thought, hey, I can do this. I can do Scott's voice, at least for for quite a few of the songs, not all of them. He's actually a tough singer to follow. Like I could not do all the songs. I tried really hard, and some of them were a little too tough for me. But a lot of them I could, or at least well enough. But I ended up having this whole list of a bunch of Stone Temple Pilots songs, and I thought to myself, man, maybe we could just do an STP tribute, at least just for now. You know what I mean? Until we can add more songs to their catalog, and then we can, mix it up. But so we started out an STP tribute band, which I ended up calling Silver Gun Superman. Man, I love that name, and I wish things had worked out. But anyways, yeah. So there you have it. Silver Gun Superman STP tribute. So it started out good. I was very excited that we were doing this project. I was very excited to that we were going to be finally getting back on stage, and I was going to be performing again, and doing something different, So yeah, we had a couple of shows, and shortly after that, it started to fall apart. So let me explain here. The guy that we had as our bass player, turns out I didn't really know him, that well. When I first met him, it's like, hey, he's a nice guy. He seems like a cool dude. Kind of younger cat. Let's do this. But as he was, playing with us, in the band, right? I started to get to know him, and he knowing me. We could tell we were two totally different types of people, and the truth was, his personality and stuff he just didn't fit the band. His vibes were all wrong for what we were trying to do, and I don't know. It ended up kind of like causing I felt like he kind of really didn't like me in a way. Like I don't really want to say well, I don't know how to say it. It's just, it was more like he just, not just that he didn't agree, but I just felt like maybe he was frustrated with me or something, or he didn't like how I was. Like, he had a problem with my drinking. He thought that was not cool of me to drink or something. And then he was upset that I had gotten upset over the fact that our first show did not go very well at all. In fact, it was the worst show I'd ever put on. Up to then, it was the only bad show I'd ever had. I never had a bad show before. And it wasn't because the band had screwed up anything. It wasn't the band members, anybody. It was, we believe, had something to do with the sound guy, because we were having a hard time hearing ourselves on stage, even after we had done sound check and all that stuff. And it just caused a lot of problems. For me, vocally, I ended up singing a lot of the songs out of tune, and it was just really embarrassing and stuff. It just did not go well. And me and the guitarist, we were very upset about this, but when we expressed how upset we were, not at anybody, we weren't upset with, towards anyone. We were just upset, because of course we wanted to put a good show on. That was our debut show, and it didn't go well. But anyways, the bass player was he was all happy about, saying that he was, it was a good show. He was, happy to have, he had a good time, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, it was just weird for us. And, he had sent that message right after that night, after I cried myself to sleep, because it was such a terrible, experience for me. And I wasn't trying to be a jerk or anything. I was just letting him know. He's letting me know how he felt about it. I was letting him know, hey, it was the worst show I'd ever done. I said, I don't like it, and I hope, that never happens again. I mean, I'm very, upset that this has happened. And I just want to redeem, I want us to be redeemed, for the next show. Hopefully we get another chance, hopefully, and, that's all I could think about, right? But I don't know, he saw it as a little something different. He saw that from his perspective, I was being negative, and, I was, bringing him down, I was, he picking up bad vibes or something anyways, like I said, I'm not saying he did anything bad or he's a bad guy or I don't like the guy. It's, like I said, it wasn't like that. It was just, we had two different types of personalities, two different perspectives about how things, were or should be. And I could just tell he just, he didn't really match well with the rest of the band. But anyways, so he said that he didn't really want to do it anymore, and I respected that. He just told me, hey, I don't think this is right for me. We came to this mutual agreement where he was like, hey, I just don't think this is for me, so I'm going to respectfully, bow out and, leave the band. And I was totally okay with it. I mean, it sucks. I don't want to lose anybody. You know, I hate coming across any kind of issues, right? I want us all to have a good time and whatever. But and of course, that puts me in another position where I need to find a bass player. But I respected that, because if something's not right for you and you're not having fun and it's just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to be a part of this if you're not enjoying it, or if we're not having the same vision, right? Working towards the same goal here. So yeah, I had no animosity or anything, bad blood with him or anything. It's like, okay, fine. You want to leave? I respect that. And thank you for, what you had contributed to the band up to this point. And, I appreciate, you having come out and played with us and gave it a shot, right? So, wish you all the best, whatever. So we left, feel like we left on good terms. But there's that. And now that puts me in a position where I need a bass player now. If that wasn't, already an issue, right, having lost the bass player, then a problem came up with my drummer, who, by the way, I got along with very well. He was a cool guy, and, we're still a little, we stay a little bit in touch even today, and he's doing his own thing with another band. And the problem was, although he was awesome and we got along, it was becoming a struggle for him to be coming back and forth to the rehearsal. See, he lived out a little bit far out, so he was making kind of these long drives. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's like, gas money is a problem, whatever, so I was going to try to throw some gas money, at him to help him each week to come to the rehearsals. But it turned out it wasn't just about, a money issue or gas. It was a time thing. See, his wife, he was explaining to me, was kind of giving him a little bit of a hassle, because he was already in another band. And so he was spending time doing, with that project, and then driving over here, spending time with us and performing out and stuff. And apparently, she was just upset because he wasn't spending much time at home. He was always doing the music thing here and there. And, he just felt like, I guess he needed to spend more quality time with his family and have more time with them, right? So that was completely understandable. He was sorry to have left, to leave us like that, but, he needed to do what he needed to do. And I understood that. I respected that. Like, yeah, hey, that's your family, man. You know what I mean? You got, happy wife, happy life. You know what I'm saying? So, so yeah, of course, I'm not going to be angry at him for leaving. We let him go. Of course, all was good. I wished him all the best. Same as I told the bass player, hey, I appreciate everything you've done for us, man. I hate losing you, but, it is what it is. And, good luck to you in with your other project and, and your home life, right? So there you go. I'm out of a freaking drummer and a bass player now. Luckily, the band that we had been opening for, we had a good relationship with them. The leader of that band actually came to the rescue and was like, hey, look, if you want, you can, borrow, our drummer, because he likes that 90s stuff anyways, and he's looking to play more. And so maybe, you guys, when you open for us, he can play with you, and then, when we go on, he'll just play with us. So that's how we got a new drummer, who, by the way, is freaking awesome. Great guy. He's a really, really good friend of mine. I think of him now as a brother. We built a great relationship together. But yeah, so he was playing with us, and man, we had a great time with him, man. I really enjoyed having him in the band with us. So we had that problem solved, right? In the meantime, now we're looking. We still need a bass player. Well, I had a guy. This was not easy, by the way. He was a DJ, and he was really heavily into DJing. Like that's like his career, right? Like that's all he really does or he thinks about, right? But he was also a multi-instrumentalist, so he could play guitar and he knew how to play drums. I had actually met him at the School of Music where I was taking my son to do DJ lessons. He was my son's DJ instructor, and anyways, we had hit it off, right, and we became friends, started hanging out and stuff. So, anyways, he said that he could, I told him about my problem, right? He said he could stand in and maybe do some bass, but that, he didn't know how far he can go into this, commit into this band because he was really serious about his DJ stuff and he wanted to put his focus on that. So anyways, like I said, it wasn't easy because, he kind of offered to do it, then he kind of backed out, and then he was like, well, maybe, and, it was a lot of back and forth and uncertainty. But luckily, I was able to get him on. He never played bass before, but he was really good at picking up things, by ear. And so I think we let him borrow a bass that we had or something, and I sent him some of the songs, and he was able to learn them, and he played bass, and then he played really well. All in all, he's just a good, he's good musically, and he's just a good performer on stage too. He's a great performer. So it just worked out. And he played a couple of shows with us. So we had a new drummer and a new bass player, and you know what? It kicked ass, man. Like we did really well, and we enjoyed, the time that we had, but again, short-lived. We only had a few, maybe I think 2 shows that we did together, I think. And then things fell apart again. Gosh. My DJ friend who was filling in for bass, he couldn't do it anymore. He had some things pop up, and again, like he'd already told me, he's very concentrated in his DJ stuff, which I already knew that, So, but we had a discussion about him possibly just doing both things and juggling both things. But turns out he could not do that. It didn't work out, and so, of course, he had to go back and do his DJ stuff, and I was left without a bass player again. In fact, my DJ friend ended up moving to Colorado, so there was even talks of him flying in back and forth because we were thinking about, we were going to be playing more. We had plans to maybe go touring with this other band, right? And so we were like, we need a bass player. And he was like, maybe I could fly in or whatever. But that was all wishful thinking, man. All in all, I ended up, that was going to be too much of a hassle, money for plane tickets and worrying about, how much time he's going to have to fly in and do rehearsals and the comfort. It would have been too much. So, anyway, that fell apart. Then the drummer who we had, right? Man, his band needed to borrow him back. All right, so, man, and although I knew that he was on loan to us, basically, and that eventually, he would probably have to leave. We got along so well, man, and we were having such a great time. I guess in my mind, I just forgot all about that. It was almost like he was part of our band. He was a part of Silver Gun Superman, and he had, we become such good friends also that it just felt like something that wasn't going to end, and but it did. Time was up, and the other band needed him to be, more present, and focus on what they were doing. They were going on tour and stuff like that, had big plans. So, as heartbreaking as it was, he had to leave. And again, I had to respect that both of them had their own thing going. So, there you have it. I'm out of a bass player and a drummer again. So, yeah, that sucks, right? I'm just back in the same position again, and I just feel like I'm frustrated because I'm constantly, I feel like I can't keep a band together, and even though it's really nobody's fault, right? Like things are just happening. I feel like that looks bad on me, because anybody who I don't have time to like sit there and explain my story, they're just going to automatically think, oh, Nick can't hold a band together. He must not be a very good band leader, or maybe he's a jerk, and people don't like working for him, so they leave the band or whatever, Probably coming up with all these different, thoughts in their head or ideas of what's really going on, when that's not, that's couldn't be any further from the truth. It's just everybody has their own personal things going on, and, things just happen. So like I said, I'm stuck in this position now, and I'm starting to freak out because, I'm thinking, how are we going to do this? I don't want to, let this project fall apart. I still want to do this, and I'm still itching to perform, So I came across this guy. I met through my producer friend from Demolition Amore. He had sold his amp to this kid that was doing bass, and who turns out also could play drums really well. And anyways, he got me in contact with him, and long story short, I got in contact with the kid. He came over, and he had a project that he had been working on that fell apart and went on hold, right, I guess. And so he was kind of in my situation. He was looking to play out, and he just needed to stay busy. And so we hit it off, and he told me, he's like, "Yo, man, do you need more, players?" He goes, I know some guys. I can call up a guitarist right now. I can call up a drummer right now and get them here, and you'll have another, your band together. And I was just like, "What? Huh?" Yeah. Call those guys up, man. Let's go. So here I am getting excited again. And, we scheduled some time for them to come, and we all meet up. And it's just a group of, young guys. I mean, honestly, kids, basically. People, half my age. All right. Well, actually, maybe more, right? I'm like, at this time, I think I'm maybe 41, I think. And these guys are coming in here, 20, 21 years old. But, even though there was that huge age gap, I'm thinking, hey, look, whatever, man. If you guys can play, whatever, we're good. That's all I care about. And yeah, man, first, right off the bat, they had great style. They look like real rock and rollers, man. So they really fit the style that I was looking for. They really fit the vibes. And they liked the music, the Stone Temple Pilots stuff that I was playing. And we just did our first jam session all together. And man, dude, it was a magical thing that night. We played for several hours, and we had so much fun. And these guys were really, really good musicians. They had everything, like I said, the style, the attitude, the vibes, the liking, for the music. It was like everything I had ever hoped for. I only had wished, I had met them when I was in my younger days. The timelines kind of, were screwy, right? Because again, there was a huge age gap. But hey, I felt like this is great. This is the kind of people I've been looking for. This is great. This is exactly what I had envisioned, and now I have a band together. I don't have to worry about finding other, some new players. Here they are right now in my home and killing it, So now that I got, this new group of guys, I feel reinvigorated, right? And I reach out to my, guitarist, right? And I'm like telling him, hey, look, we don't have to look for anybody else. I got who we need. This is the new band members that we're going to be playing with. I said, yeah, this other guy's a guitarist, but he's really good at soloing and, doing lead guitar stuff. So, I sent him a picture of the group, of guys. I said, this is our new bandmates. I said, we're going to be, there's going to be, you and another guitarist. All right. And if you're okay with that, then, let me know and we're good. Let's continue on with this project. He got back with me and he was like, yeah, of course, man. Let's do it. Let's go. And so I was trying to schedule a time with him so that we can all meet up and I can introduce the guys and stuff and do like a little jam session. And I never got a message back. Never got a response back from my guitarist. He left me on red, and that was honestly the last I ever heard from him. I really don't know what happened. But honestly, I gotta say, I just didn't care enough to push for more information. I didn't try to contact him again. I wasn't trying to figure that out. I almost felt like, I'm trying to hurry up and move things along. I don't want to deal with anything else. I don't want to stress over anything else or be hassled by anything else. So I already let him know what was up. He said he was on board. I'm trying to schedule time. He's not answering back. So it's just like, all right, man, I'm not gonna try to solve this case, this mystery, right? I got other stuff I'm trying to deal with. So I just went to work with this other group of guys, and we started putting a plan together, rehearsing, and some time had went by, and although we were having a great time, right? I was having fun with these guys, coming over and playing. I was enjoying, rehearsing with them and stuff. I was having a problem getting us a gig. And then I started having a problem with, getting the guys to kind of start, tightening up, getting more serious and adding songs to the list. Like I felt like we kept performing the same, playing the same songs over and over again. I'm trying to build up a longer list of like at least 30 songs, and we were still stuck on the same like 6, 7-ish songs that we kept rehearsing, which I had already also played with the previous band. So I was already kind of getting bored just playing the same songs. I'm like, can we just learn some new songs and let's do some new things and, let's try to get a gig, guys, Anyways, things started to happen, man. Not in a good way. There started to be some personal issues that were arising again, with these guys, girlfriends, and they also had a former bandmate from their previous project. Things had fallen apart with him, and so which is one of the reasons they had come and joined with me. But now, things were kind of, how do you say, repairing with the old bandmate, and they were going to start playing out. So they start kind of, pulling away from me a little bit to go play with him. And plus, there was another, some of them were in another band together. I think the guitarist had a girlfriend who was also, she had her own band, and he was playing for her band. And they had the drummer that we were using, going and playing with him too. So it just ended up, we started to pull away from each other and separate. And, again, I try not to be bitter about nothing. To me, you go do your thing, right? Like, don't worry about me. You got to do what's best for you and your career. Have your priorities set and stuff. And when they started repairing the relationship with their other band, the singer from the other band that they were in, they had already been doing pretty well before things had fallen apart. So now that they were repairing things, they were getting back in the swing of things with this guy, and they were, they had gigs and stuff scheduled. They were playing out. So now they were trying to divide their time, between Silver Gun Superman and this other band, and that other band. You know what I mean? A couple things going, and eventually, man, it just little by little things were happening. Like, we got this gig we got to prepare for. Oh, we got to go rehearse with this other band. also, and then on the gas money, to come to make it over there, because again, they lived at that time. They were farther out. They were pretty good ways. I think they were driving like 45 minutes, or maybe even an hour almost to get to my place. So yeah, so there you go. Eventually, we played one gig together. It was a New Year's Eve party at my friend's house that we played, and some things had went down there at that party that after we had played, I guess some of the guys from the band they were kind of acting up, and I guess they had messed up something in the house. There's a bathroom situation where, I don't know, they just got a little out of control, and my friends weren't too happy about that, and I ended up having to ask them to leave the party and stuff. And honestly, after that pretty much ended everything. The band, the project fell apart. We all kind of just went our separate ways. I tried to hold it together. It just didn't work out. So, but I stayed in touch with a couple of the guys. We still talk and talk music and stuff like that. And I go out support them or whatever. And but yeah, so that's just the way it goes, man. It didn't work out, unfortunately. All in all, that has been my personal experience with having, been in bands. And again, you're not hearing this from a guy who's been doing it for 20 plus years. Haven't been in several bands, and like I said, played hundreds of shows or whatever. But I feel like at least sharing some of my experience can be helpful or insightful to some of you guys. Really, I'm not talking to the more experienced people. I'm more talking to those of you who are pretty much brand new to this, right? Who have maybe never been in a band before, or or just coming on to the music scene and trying to do something with your music or whatever, or thinking about performing, things like that. Just keeping it for the newbies, I guess you could say. But yeah, so I do want to add that although those projects kind of fell through, I did have some good experiences there. Okay, I don't want to make it seem like it was awful, it was terrible, and discourage you guys or deter y'all from if you guys have hopes or dreams of joining a band or creating a band yourself. I don't want to like I said, discourage you from that, because some of my greatest life experiences and moments have come from being in a band. Just letting you know there are some hardships, and it's not always going to be fun or a good time, and you're not always going to agree with everybody, and sometimes as you know now through my stories, things happen, and they're not always in your favor, and sometimes you upset people, and sometimes things just fall apart, and they can be frustrating, and you just gotta deal with it, try to stay positive, and hey, that didn't work out, but I've learned something from that, and now I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna do this other thing. Doesn't mean you gotta just quit, right? You guys maybe gotta change it up. So with that said, I did decide to just leave bands alone. I kind of grew tired of it. I got tired of dealing with all that crap, and I just thought to myself, you know what? I have a lot of material written of my own, my original stuff, and I want to start focusing on that. Because at least I know, I'm not in a band, right? I'm going to do a solo thing. It'll just be me, and I know I can depend on me. You know what I'm saying? I can count on myself to do the work and to be there and to, give it my all, right, 100%. So, and I don't have to worry about anybody else's crap. So I decided that that's what I was going to do, and I went to my producer friend from Demolition Amore, who I'd built a good relationship with, and he didn't have nothing going on either, right? Because the Demolition Amore project had fallen apart. So I came to him and I said, look, man, I got this original music that I have written. I mean, several songs, and I think they're pretty good. And I really want to get these recorded, and I'd like to know if you'd be willing to help me with that and work on this project with me together. Again, we're not a band, right? We're not performing together. It's just, this is now recording, okay? And let's just see what happens with that. You know, I'm gonna try to get an album done. So that's where I'm at now. What stage of my career I'm at now is just, you know, leaving the bands alone, recording music, and trying to get this album finished. And that's my main goal. That's my priority right now. All right, guys, that's it for this one. I'm Nicky Phenom. Thanks for hanging out and listening to the stories. I hope you guys have learned something, or, you know, maybe it gave you an idea for something, motivated you in some way, or at the very least you found my story interesting. With that said, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so we can keep this going and continue to support each other as artists. And until next time, guys, keep rocking, follow your dreams, and believe it can happen.